The morning sun streamed through the tall glass windows of the luxurious Accra mansion, casting golden streaks across the polished marble floors. Madam Elizabeth Harper, Ghana's real estate queen, stood in the hallway, slipping on her tailored blazer. Her phone buzzed incessantly. James, her business partner, reminding her of the critical investors meeting in East Legon. Billions of dollars were at stake. She grabbed her car keys, her heels clicking with purpose. But then, a small figure blocked her path. Sarah, the house help, knelt on the cool tiles, her eyes wide with fear, hands clasped tightly. "Madame, please," she whispered, voice trembling. "Don't go to that meeting today. Something terrible will happen." Elizabeth froze, her hand pausing on her wristwatch. "Sarah, what's this nonsense?" she asked, her tone sharp but curious. "I had a dream last night," Sarah said, her voice barely audible. "You were in your white dress, same as now. You got into your car, and then blood screams. You didn't come back." The air grew heavy. Elizabeth's phone buzzed again. James impatient. She glanced at Sarah's tear-streaked face. The girl wasn't acting. Her fear was raw, real. Elizabeth's husband, Michael, appeared from the staircase, his silk robe tied loosely. "What's going on?" he asked, eyeing Sarah with disdain. "She says I shouldn't go to the meeting," Elizabeth replied, her gaze still on the kneeling girl. Michael scoffed. "This is why I said we should fire her. Now she's a prophetess?" He turned to Elizabeth. "You're late. Investors won't wait." Sarah didn't budge. "Please, madam, I beg you. If you go, you won't return." Something stirred in Elizabeth's chest, a quiet, unshakable instinct. She stepped back, dropped her keys on the glass table, and said, "I'm not going." Michael's jaw dropped. "You're joking, right?" "I'm not," Elizabeth said firmly, walking to the living room and sinking into a leather chair. Sarah rose slowly, wiping her eyes, and quietly resumed her chores. Michael stormed upstairs, muttering about wasted opportunities. Elizabeth sat in silence, her heart racing. Why did Sarah's fear feel more real than the deal she'd been chasing for months? Elizabeth Harper was no ordinary woman. At 42, she was the co-founder of Gold Coast Properties, a real estate empire she'd built from a small office in OSU with her charismatic partner, James Carter. Elizabeth was the brain strategic meticulous, a woman who could spot a bad deal in a single glance. James was the charm, the one who closed contracts with a smile. Together, they turned Accra's skyline into a testament to their success. From Lebon's luxury condos to Airport City's towering estates. Her marriage to Michael, though, was less triumphant. He was handsome, polished, a former model who loved the spotlight. They met at a charity gala in Cantonments, where his charm swept her off her feet. But love faded fast. Michael craved luxury, not loyalty. He complained about her long hours, her focus on work, and most of all, the house helps. In 3 years, he'd fired 8 each. For trivial reasons, she used too much detergent. She walked too slowly. Elizabeth stopped arguing. She buried herself in work. Then came Sarah. Quiet, unassuming, with neat braids and plain dresses, she entered the mansion 6 months ago. She cleaned without being told, cooked meals Michael actually ate, and moved like a shadow, efficient, invisible. Even Michael, who never praised anyone, once muttered, "She's not as useless as the others." High praise from a man who found fault in everything. Now, Elizabeth sat in her living room, staring at the keys she'd abandoned. Her phone lit up. James again. She answered. "Elizabeth, what's going on?" His voice was sharp. "You missed the meeting. The investors are furious. I had to postpone." "I'm not coming," she said flatly. "You're not what?" "Steel is everything." "I know," she replied, her voice steady. "But something's not right." Before James could argue, another call came through. Her office manager, Emily. Elizabeth switched lines. "Madame," Emily's voice shook. "Your driver, Thomas. He's been in an accident on the Liberation Road. A tanker hit your Mercedes. It's totaled. He's in the hospital, unconscious. We thought you were in the car." Elizabeth's breath caught. The exact car, the exact route, the exact time. She lowered the phone, her mind racing. If she hadn't listened to Sarah, would she be alive? Michael reappeared, his face a mask of irritation. "So, you're just sitting here now," he snapped. "There was an accident," Elizabeth said, her voice low. Thomas took the car. A tanker hit him. Michael shrugged. So, traffic accidents happen every day in Accra. Elizabeth studied him. No concern, no relief that she was safe, just indifference. You don't care, do you? She asked. You're here, aren't you? Shot back, then walked away. Elizabeth's chest tightened. She turned to Sarah, who was wiping down a table. Thank you, she said quietly. Sarah nodded, her eyes downcast, and slipped away. The days that followed were tense. Elizabeth grew quiet, watchful. She noticed Michael's late-night calls, the way he avoided her gaze, the way he sneered whenever Sarah passed. Something was wrong, and it wasn't just the accident. One evening, as Elizabeth reviewed contracts in her study, Sarah entered to clear a teacup. She hesitated, then whispered, "Madam, don't sign any papers this week." Elizabeth's pen stopped. "Why? I had another dream," Sarah said, her voice barely audible. "You signed documents. Then everything fell apart. Your company, your accounts, your freedom gone. There were police. You were in handcuffs." Elizabeth's heart raced. "What kind of documents?" "I don't know," Sarah said. "But if you sign anything, you'll lose everything." Michael walked in, and Sarah quickly left. He raised an eyebrow. "What was that about?" "Nothing," Elizabeth said, but Sarah's words burned in her mind. 2 days later, James arrived at the mansion, all smiles and cologne. "Elizabeth, you scared me," said, pulling her into a hug. "God, you weren't in that car." She nodded, her smile tight. "What's the latest on the deal?" "It's still on," James said, pulling out a folder. "Need your signature on these. Dubai investors? Big money?" Elizabeth took the folder, but didn't open it. That night, alone in her study, she examined the documents. The numbers were wrong, land values undervalued, payouts routed to an unfamiliar offshore account. Sarah's warning echoed. "You'll lose everything." She hired a discreet auditor. The findings were devastating. James had been siphoning funds from Gold Coast properties for years, hiding millions in ghost projects. Worse, the documents she nearly signed would have implicated her in his fraud, landing her in jail. At home, Michael grew colder. He demanded Sarah's dismissal. "She's too nosy," he said. "I don't trust her." "She stays," Elizabeth said, her voice like steel. "You're choosing a maid over me," he snapped. "I'm choosing my sanity," she replied. That night, Elizabeth overheard Michael on the phone, his voice low. "She's not signing. The maid's ruining everything." "You said this would be easy, James." Elizabeth's blood ran cold. She hired a private investigator the next day. The investigator's reports came swiftly. Michael wasn't visiting his sick mother in Kumasi as he'd claimed. He was at a boutique hotel in OSU, registered under a false name, meeting James. Photos showed them together, too close, too familiar. They weren't just plotting against her business. They were old childhood friends. Elizabeth confronted them at the hotel. She walked into room 312, key in hand, and found Michael lounging on the bed, James pouring wine. Their faces froze. "Elizabeth," Michael stammered, standing. James tried to smile. "It's not what you think. It's exactly what I think," Elizabeth said, her voice calm but cutting. "You plan to ruin me with him," Elizabeth said. "You married me for my money." Michael's eyes darted. James stepped forward. "Let's talk." "No," Elizabeth said. "We're done." She walked out, leaving them in silence. Elizabeth filed for divorce and bought out James's shares. The mansion felt emptier, but the weight in her chest lifted. She worked tirelessly to rebuild Gold Coast properties, opening a new branch in Takoradi, hiring honest talent and steering clear of shady deals. One evening, Sarah entered the study. "I'm leaving tomorrow," she said softly. Elizabeth's heart sank. "Why?" "My work here is done," Sarah said. "You're safe now. You're awake." "You saved me," Elizabeth said, her voice breaking. "Stay." She left the next morning, her small bag in hand. Elizabeth watched her go, a mix of gratitude and loss in her heart. She smashed a framed wedding photo, the glass shattering like the lies she'd lived with. A year later, Elizabeth was different, stronger, wiser. She found joy in small things. Walks along Labadi Beach, laughter with new friends, a quiet romance with a schoolteacher who loved her for her heart, not her wealth. Across Accra, Sarah stepped out of a taxi, her plain gown swaying in the breeze. She knocked on the door of a modest house in Medina. A weary woman answered, her marriage crumbling under secrets. Sarah smiled. "I'm the house help," she said. And wherever she went, truth followed.